Normally I do start with scales, but I've decided I'm gonna make some adjustments. I wanna start actually with a warm-up. I think scales are still super important, scales and arpeggios. I don't want to push those to the second half of the day. I wanna do a warm-up, and I just wanna do the things that get me started on the right foot. It's something that I'll look forward to a small degree, because sometimes I'll wake up and be like, oh fuck, scales. And I don't want to have that association with practicing guitar. I'm gonna just start with going through some new licks that I learned last night. I learned a couple of new licks on pickup music. They're outside of my genre, but I'm realizing that I just need to expose myself to different genres if I want to be a complete guitarist. There's also a challenging part of Ariana Powell's piece that I'm learning that is still kind of tricky for me, so I want to drill that a little bit. And then I'll just do a couple of speed licks just to warm up my fingers. Essentially, this is just going to be my warm-up for the day, and then I'll jump into scales later, so. Yeah, because I never really worked on bends because it just didn't feel like it was my genre. Okay, so I'm actually kind of connecting some of the dots here. I'm just like finding a pattern. The reason why I wanted to learn this lick was because first when I was starting to learn the licks, I was like, just give me the longest licks so I can get the most like bang for my buck, right? Because I figured with those really long, like 20-note licks, it's pretty much maybe like 3 smaller licks combined into one. So I was like, dude, let's make the most of our time with learning licks. But I think just taking a step back and being like, okay, what are these smaller ones? I'm glad that I did that because now I can start to thread some of the patterns together where we have this little pentatonic, a really tiny pentatonic shape that now I see in pickup music's lesson. And then we also have bearded guitars. It's kind of similar. And then also Ariana Powell in her piece. It doesn't go up that half step, but it still kind of uses a similar shape. All right, now we're gonna do some just speed exercises, just really light ones. Again, this is all still part of my warm-up. We'll maybe stick to 120. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy that 120 is chill for me now. Because literally, I just made a speed breakthrough a couple of days ago. Literally 2 days ago, actually. You know, for 16th notes, 100 BPM was a challenge. A lot of these speed licks that I came up with for the speed improv exercise a couple of weeks ago, those are actually the licks that come up the most frequently when I improv. And so I figured, okay, if that's the case, let's intentionally work on molding some of these licks in a way that they become more interesting and I can pull more interesting licks. Because right now they're just very boring, like... And you know, it's gonna be incremental how complex and interesting they become, but what if I can just do something like... Anyways, the point is to just like introduce a little bit of variety and during the practice sessions so that later in the improv, you know, hopefully things come more naturally. This is gonna be hard to do as a speed exercise, but I'm down. So I did start this analysis sheet here because, yeah, I think it's super important to at least begin getting into the habit of, I don't know if you would call it transcribing. This is like a very light, dumb version of it because I'm just including scale degrees for each of these licks. But for me, that's fine. It's a good starting point. I just want something to look at and be able to have some sort of view of picking up patterns. Let's say like the small little 4 or 5 note lick from pickup music that looked very similar to the bearded guitarist lick, as well as a small little portion of Ariana Powell's piece. I'll need to throw that in here as well, just to see which scale degrees are they using. I think over time, that should start to reveal some patterns. And especially when I go to composing my own licks more seriously and composing maybe a full piece one day, I think it'll be important to understand under the hood of some of the licks that I do like, and I can better understand why I like those licks and why those certain notes make me feel a certain way. It can be very tedious, as you can see. Hopefully the return on my time is very worth it in the end. Yeah. Okay. All right, this was a very, very long warm-up. It wasn't much of a warm-up. It was just pretty much technique exercise, but I guess we can start out with a little bit of fun. from time to time. It is Friday after all. You know, what's really interesting is that there's two schools of thought with speed. One is like you should start really slow. Not that you should start slow, but you should start at a place where you can play it very cleanly. And then you should incrementally increase speed as time goes on. But there's another school of thought, which is more what Roy Ziv is a big proponent of, which is it doesn't matter if you play cleanly, but just get to the edge of your abilities so that you can play around 80% of the repetitions cleanly and maybe 20% of them you can't really do it that cleanly. Personally, I'm in the second camp because for a couple of reasons. I think one is, you know, you have like a target speed that you actually want to perform or play cleanly. That doesn't necessarily mean that you should practice at that speed, because you're actually probably more capable of speeds much higher than what you would perform at. And so by practicing at speeds higher, the normal speed, when you go back to it, just feels very easy. And then you can actually play that very cleanly. Another reason why I'm a proponent of pushing yourself to the edge of your abilities, even if it's not clean, is because I think especially for us intermediate or beginner guitarists, we actually don't know what our limits are. We don't know what we're capable of. We just sit there and just really fucking try it, you know? We're like, oh, there's no way I could do 120. And that's exactly what happened to me 2 days ago. You know, I was doing the Ben Higgins alternate picking exercise. And yeah, I was just like, without a metronome, I was like, oh, wait, what the fuck? What the fuck? I did it and I was like, holy shit, what the fuck happened? I literally, in that session, went from 100 BPM, which I thought was my limit, and then I hit 160. Sure, it wasn't the cleanest, and now I'm like, oh, for at least licks that I'm comfortable with, 120 seems like a chill speed. And that's insane, right? That's insane. So yeah, at the end of the day, I think we don't really know our abilities until we really test it. And sometimes we just have to push for it. And that means it's not gonna be the cleanest, but we're still really trying our best to push those limits. I'm using some distortion for the first time, so this should sound pretty cool. Pickup Music has this feature to submit a recording of your playing. And so this week I've really been trying to get this Ariana Powell piece down. I played it for the first time without Ariana playing the solo, and it was just the band, which is also really cool. But it was, it definitely showed how much I need to practice still. Playing with just the band and not Ariana also playing the solo, it really highlighted how messy my playing is. Yeah, and there's still that one challenging part that I've been working on all week, and I still can't get it. So I really wanted to focus on that. Honestly, tomorrow as well, I think that's gonna be my main focus. Just literally getting that problematic part down so that I can get it super cleanly. Yeah, and then I just wanna really button up this piece and get it down. So a little frustrating that I still suck at it after all these hours, but hopefully the payoff will be good in the next day or two. So yeah, that's gonna be it for today. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace, peace, peace.